I honestly don't know why I haven't already done a third episode of Minecraft Mobs as Fantasy Monsters. I mean, last year when I did the first 2 episodes, lots of people seemed to really enjoy them. I had a lot of fun making them. It seems like a no-brainer that I would have just done a third episode by now, but for whatever reason, I hadn't. You know, until today. So I've gone back through the comment sections of those previous 2 videos and found a bunch more mobs to take and turn into monsters. So let's get into this, shall we? Let's go. Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show. It had been quite some time since I last returned to the mining colony Isles. Last time I was there, Stephen the Bold had just completed his trials to become captain of the Island Guard, and he extended an invitation for me to return at any time. Finally, I took him up on that offer. When I arrived at Stephen's village, they were just in the middle of completing a ritual. There was a carved iron statue in the midst of a circle of villagers, while one woman, stepped just inside the circle, was chanting and carrying a large pumpkin. She smashed the pumpkin at the feet of the statue, and just as she did, cracks erupted along its body, splitting creases at its joints. The statue began to move. It stretched out its limbs, then simply looked calmly down at the crowd before it. The people all cheered, then eventually parted ways, leaving the now animated statue to slowly meander about the village. I heard of these creatures on my last voyage here, but hadn't had the pleasure of seeing one in person. I found Stephen and asked him to remind me of what these creatures could do. He said they were called the Iron Guard Sentinels. They were a breed of golems specific to the island, crafted from a special kind of iron that can only be found on the mining colony Isles. They were very durable and capable fighters, built to aid the guards in protecting the villages from invaders or unwanted creatures. But most of the time, these sentinels simply wander about the villages they were forged in, giving people a sense of ease, and even sometimes picking flowers and presenting them to the children of the village. It's not often that they'll have to spring into action to protect people, and yet, I just so happened to be present when one of these cases arose. Now, fun fact that I'm quite sure I didn't say in the last episode, the second Minecraft Monsters episode, I actually drew an Iron Golem for that episode, but I cut it out because I didn't think it was good enough. I'd done 5 drawings, so I was just like, I can just cut this one and maybe redo it at a different time. And I'm glad I did that because now I get an opportunity to do a better job of it now, but looking back at the drawing I'd done then, which I'll show you here, I don't think it's any worse than the other drawings from that episode. I think it's fine. Looking back at those first 2 Minecraft Monsters episodes, I think the first one is great and holds up well, and the second one, I think the lore for it's fun, but the art is, it's okay. But it's always fun doing a distant sequel, doing a sequel to an episode a long time after I did the previous one, like when I did my 3rd episode of Avengers as Dragons. I then get to look back at how much my art has evolved from those previous episodes. I'm actually using a bunch of the design ideas that I'd used for the last time I drew the Iron Golem as a monster, but I'm making this one a lot more textured and rough looking, a little bit more beaten up. I'm taking inspiration from some of my fantasy armor episodes, but also trying to make sure this looks a little bit more like a natural creature. I'm almost taking a bit more inspiration from stone golems for it, while also trying to give it a little bit more of a forged sort of look. And I think I strike that balance decently well. Hope you all agree. Let's take a look at how it turned out. Not long after the new Iron Guard Sentinel had been forged, the village was attacked. A hostile clan that has never let me close enough to ask them anything about their lifestyle on my previous ventures here attempted a raid on Stephen's village. The Sentinel, along with the village's guard, and with my assistance as well, were all more than enough to ward off the attackers, but after the initial waves of soldiers retreated, there was a loud horn that blew in the distance. Then, down the trail headed straight towards the town came a rampaging beast. It was much like a bull, but twice the size. It was adorned in spike armor plating and had a larger mouth than most bovine creatures. This was a ravaging direwolf, a common mount of the hostile clans of the Isles. This one had no rider, but came towards us all the same. I was ready to move in and headed off before it reached us, but Stephen put a calm hand on my shoulder and told me to let the Iron Guard do its job. The golem stomped forth and attacked the beast itself. Early on, the battle seemed fairly even, with the direwolf even driving its horn through the golem's torso plating. But as the brawl went on, it got more one-sided, with the Sentinel having a clear upper hand. The Golem even managed to lift the bull above its head, then slam it down into the dirt. It did this multiple times until, finally, the Direbolt stopped getting back up. Villagers moved in to harvest the creature's hide, and the woman who'd forged the Iron Golem in the first place began to patch up the damage caused by the battle. It was a fascinating event to witness, but far from the strangest thing I'd observe on this third bout around the Isles. Now with this drawing, I really like how it turned out, but also think I probably could have made it a little bit more monstrous. I really like the rendering and the pose, but, you know, it kind of does just look like a really big bull, which is fine, that's kind of what the Ravager is, but, you know, I could have made it a little bit more menacing looking, I think. Also, usually with my specific Minecraft episodes, I try to only use Minecraft mobs that I haven't used before, but since I'm on to my third Minecraft Fantasy Monsters episode, and I've done 2 Minecraft Superheroes episode, I've used most of the cool mobs, in my opinion anyway, so now I'm just like, I can go back and reuse some that I haven't used in this specific series before. So I have done the Ravager as a superhero in the Minecraft Superheroes series, but hadn't used it for this, and thought it would be a fun one to draw in this episode. And I'd say I was right. Kind of detoured in what I was talking about there because I don't have much else to say about this drawing, but yeah, overall, I still like how it turned out. Let's take a look. Since my last venture to the Isles, the colony had actually made a strange discovery. While expanding their mines farther down into the depths of the earth, they broke through to a massive underground ancient city. It baffled them as they had nothing in their scrolls or tales about which clan's ancestors may have lived there. But unfortunately, they also couldn't spend much time down there studying their remains. This was because of a species of creature they found down there that they'd never seen before. It's a type of beast with no eyes that traverses the caves led by its hearing and sense of smell. Making noises any louder than quiet footsteps can lure the creature towards you, so it's very unsafe to stay down in the deep dark caverns. These creatures can even dig up through solid stone and can be struck so many times without showing any sign of injury that even in large numbers, fighting them is not worth the risk. These are the rumbling cavern wards, named as such for the rumbling gurgled calls and cries they make, which seem dual purpose, both to intimidate, but also to send echoing waves of sound through the caverns to help their traversal. Well, we likely could have lured one out by simply being down in the deep dark caverns long enough. Stephen had a quicker way. He and I located a strange green mold that was growing over some of the rocks, and from it had spawned a 4-pronged plant. Stephen struck this plant 3 times, and it sent an echoing sound through the caves. We then moved aside and stayed as still as possible. Somehow, the caves seemed to get suddenly far darker, so we could barely see a few inches in front of our face. Soon, the only thing illuminated was the 16-foot-tall, ogre-like beast lumbering towards the plant. The creature was fascinating to look at. It was mostly green, but had glowing antennae and an exposed glowing stomach, surrounded by jutting teeth. I was grateful Stephen had been willing to lure the thing out to show me, but we didn't stay long, as fighting the creature, with the little known about it, wasn't viable, even with both our combat skills combined. We moved as slowly and silently as possible until we were a ways away from the creature, then sprinted back up through the tunnels to safety. This was the piece that I knew I was going to have the most fun with. First of all, it was the creature that was most requested to use, but also I knew the lighting was going to be a blast for this one, because I wanted to have it set in a cave, have it really dark, and have the only source of lighting being the Warden's stomach, and I guess its antennae. I do cheat the lighting a little bit, because the hand that's reached out towards us probably wouldn't be as well lit as I have it here. I kind of make it as though the light is in front of the hand and below it a bit, whereas the stomach is obviously behind the hand. But if I'd done it properly, more realistic lighting, then that hand would be a lot darker and it just wouldn't look as good. So this is one of those cases where cheating it a little bit, I think, is for the better for the piece. Partway through the piece, I also noticed that it was looking a little bit too uniform color-wise. I wanted something to stand out a little bit more and maybe help us draw our eyes towards its face. So when I did the saliva in its mouth that I do with a lot of my weird, creepy kinds of creatures, I changed it to red and made it a bit more like blood, even though I didn't really write anything into the lore about, you know, this creature eating people, but I'm still happy with that. Like the lighting with the hand, I think it just kind of helps the piece be a little bit better. Also, doing this drawing prompted me to do the weird, creepy bonus episode that I have coming out on Wednesday. But the stuff in that is a lot creepier than how this guy looks, I think. Very happy with how this one turned out. I hope you all like it as well. Let's take a look. Quick interruption here to say that all of the art, as usual, will be up as posters on my Teespring store from this episode, linked in the description or the little bar beneath the video. But also interrupting to say, as I mentioned a second ago, there are going to be 3 episodes this week. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The Wednesday one will come out at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and as usual, I'll be in the comment section for the first hour it's out. So be there, or be somewhere else, I guess. I'll see some of you there, but back into art. For the final entry to my bestiary from this journey, we had to return to the realm I'd visited with the villagers the first time I'd come to the Isles. We stepped through their purple portal and found ourselves in the volcanic, cavernous nether realm. There are many hostile creatures in this area, some of which I've explored before, but the one I studied on this journey was actually a rather calm and peaceful species. The striding lava stritch appears somewhat like a blend of a blue whale and an ostrich, but with dark orange skin. It's but a large head with legs and some very thick strands of hair. It resides in the actual lava of this strange place. They stride through the lava on their long legs and spend so much time immersed in it that their lower legs are crusted over in hardened molten rock. Some of the braver villagers actually use these creatures as mounts to move across the pools of lava to reach farther parts of the nether. I thought this was an outrageous risk to take, as all that would need happen was the creature trip and the rider could fall to a very painful death, but many in the group didn't even think twice about it. The villagers have found it very easy to direct these creatures while riding them, by simply holding mushrooms and fungus out in front of them on fishing lines that the creatures will then walk towards. They're clearly not a particularly intelligent species of creature, but that doesn't make them any less fascinating. In our time down there, we did find a deceased one, and I took the opportunity to gather some of its hide. A creature with skin tough enough to withstand striding through lava seemed like a fantastic material to eventually have crafted into armor. In fact, on my last day of this third journey to the Isles, I gathered up a few segments of hides of the various creatures from the Isles, before once more saying my goodbyes and taking my leave from this fascinating region of my world. I feel like in a lot of my dragon and fantasy monster episodes lately, I'm making Tayrin come across a bit like an armor addict, because now that I have the Fantasy Armor series set in the same world, and he knows Vasilia Kuznet, the character that crafts all the fantasy armors, anytime I'm doing a monster episode, I'm like, ooh, you know what? This monster would be really cool turned into a fantasy armor, so I just always have him gathering more and more hides and pieces of creatures to, you know, hint that, oh, maybe this will turn into a fantasy armor episode as well. I do think a Minecraft fantasy armor episode could be fun, though I do kind of want to do a third episode of Minecraft Superheroes first, because I really like that series, and I haven't used a lot of the big names yet because, as I said, when I started doing the Minecraft Superheroes episodes, I didn't want to double up on any Minecraft mobs that I'd used in the fantasy series, so I haven't used the Creeper and a whole bunch of other cool mobs that could make great superheroes or villains. But none of that is design notes for this creature, so let's get back to that. Yeah, I kind of just made it look a bit like a blue whale. I don't know why that came to mind, but it really did, and then, you know, textured this thing a lot, had a lot of fun with making the lava below it look really glowy, and having it look really goopy and thick as the legs are moving through it, and then of course lit this creature from below because a lot of the lighting is coming from the lava. For a drawing that took less than 2 hours, I'm very happy with this one, and I think it's a good one to end the episode with. Let's take a look. And there we have our third episode of Minecraft mobs as fantasy monsters. If you're new to the channel, I recommend going back to the first 2 episodes because I think those ones are pretty good too. First one more so, I'll link it in the cards. Or maybe you want to check out my Minecraft mobs as superheroes, because those are a lot of fun as well, and I think that might get a 3rd episode sometime soon too. Will depend how well this does. And of course, if you've got any other ideas for what I could do with Minecraft mobs, leave them in the comments. I've actually got something I'm thinking about for an upcoming episode that will be the famous video game characters episode. Not the one coming up on Wednesday, but a different one, but I probably shouldn't be saying any of this because I haven't decided for sure if it's going to happen. But something Minecraft related might be coming in the future, / probably will. What am I doing? I should wrap this up. Anyway, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or uplifting note. And the thought I want to leave people with today is something I'm paraphrasing from Xavier Dogba, which is that sometimes the root of your suffering is attachment to your old identity. Sometimes you just have to know when to reinvent yourself. I hope that's helpful to someone out there. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Wednesday. Bonus episode coming Wednesday. See you there, maybe. Goodbye.